Take a deep breath, and let's hear a story about Aina, who found strength at dawn's first light. Aina's cottage rested at the edge of Meadowbrook Village, a small home with window boxes full of lavender and thyme that filled the air with gentle fragrance. Each morning, birds would gather on her weathered fence, their songs a chorus that usually brought a smile to her face. The cottage walls, painted a soft blue that reminded her of forget-me-nots, held treasured photographs and mementos from a life rich with memories. Her grandmother's rocking chair still occupied the corner by the eastern window, where the first light of dawn would touch its polished wood. Tonight was different, though, as Aina lay awake watching shadows dance across her bedroom ceiling. The familiar sounds of her home, the subtle creak of wooden beams, the distant hoot of an owl couldn't ease the heaviness in her chest. Her fingers absently traced the pattern of her quilt, one her grandmother had stitched by hand many summers ago. The warmth of the blanket contrasted with the chill that had settled deep within her since receiving yesterday's news. Outside, the world was draped in the velvet darkness that comes just before dawn, when stars still punctuate the sky. Moonlight filtered through lace curtains, casting delicate patterns across Aina's hardwood floor. The scent of rain lingered from an evening shower, earthy and fresh, as it mingled with the lavender sachet on her knitstand. The distant ticking of her grandfather's clock marked time's steady march, a rhythmic reminder of continuity. Aina's memories floated like autumn leaves through her mind, some golden and bright, others bearing the marks of storms weathered. Her grandmother's voice seemed to whisper from every corner, warm and wise with sayings that had guided Aina through her 30 years. "When in doubt, look to the hills," she would say, her eyes crinkling at the corners with a knowing smile. "The answers you seek are already within you, waiting to be discovered." With a soft sigh that seemed to come from her very soul, Aina slipped from beneath her covers. Her bare feet made contact with the cool wooden floor, grounding her in the present moment. She moved quietly through her small cottage, the familiar pathway requiring no light. Her hand found the woolen sweater hanging by the door, the one her grandmother had given her on her last birthday before passing, its fibers still somehow carrying the faint scent of cinnamon and cloves. Aina pulled on well-worn hiking boots that had carried her across countless trails and meadows. Their leather was soft and molded perfectly to her feet, offering comfort like an old friend's embrace. She filled her thermos with chamomile tea, the steam rising in delicate curls that tickled her nose with its soothing aroma. Her backpack waited by the door, always ready for impromptu adventures, packed with essentials and the journal she carried everywhere. The pre-dawn air embraced Aina as she stepped outside, crisp and cool against her skin. Dew-laden grass dampened the hem of her jeans as she made her way through her garden gate. Stars still sparkled overhead, though their light was beginning to fade as the eastern horizon hinted at changes to come. The world held its breath in these precious moments between night and day, a pause filled with possibility. Crickets serenaded Aina's departure, their symphony slowly giving way to the earliest bird songs as she followed the familiar path. Shadows played across the trail, softening its edges and cloaking it in mystery. Each step seemed to lighten the burden she carried, as if the very act of movement helped dissolve the tangled thoughts that had kept her awake. The village slept peacefully below, windows dark and chimneys silent. The path to the hilltop began gently enough, winding through a meadow where wildflowers would bloom in just a few weeks' time. Aina could almost see their colorful heads nodding in the spring breeze, a promise sleeping beneath the soil. The trail gradually steepened, requiring more of her attention and breath, a welcome distraction from the thoughts that had plagued her through the night. Her muscles warmed with the effort, blood flowing more quickly through her body. As the path curved through a small grove of pine trees, their needles cushioned her steps and released their clean, sharp scent into the air. Aina breathed deeply, letting the fragrance fill her lungs and clear her mind. Occasional drops of moisture fell from branches overhead, cool touches against her face like nature's gentle reminder of its presence. A rabbit darted across her path, startled by her presence in this normally solitary hour. The first suggestion of dawn appeared as a faint lightening of the eastern sky, barely perceptible but full of promise. Aina's pace quickened slightly, drawn forward by an instinct as old as humanity itself, the desire to witness the world's awakening. The hilltop had been her grandmother's favorite place, a spot where Maria said the veil between heaven and earth seemed thinnest. Aina had spent countless mornings there as a child, her small hand tucked safely in her grandmother's weathered one. Every step brought memories flooding back summer picnics with fresh bread and blackberry jam, autumn afternoons collecting colorful leaves for pressing, winter mornings when the world sparkled with frost like a scene from a fairy tale. Her grandmother's laughter echoed in her mind, warm and rich as honey, a sound that had always made Aina feel that all was right with the world. The path steepened for its final ascent, challenging Aina to push through the fatigue that tugged at her limbs. The summit welcomed Aina with a gentle clearing, ringed by ancient oak trees whose massive trunks spoke of centuries of patient growth. A large, flat boulder, her grandmother's thinking stone, waited at the clearing's center, its surface worn smooth by generations of visitors. Aina approached it reverently, her fingers trailing across its cool surface, connecting her to all who had sat here before. The first birds of morning called to one another across the valley, their voices clear in the still air. Aina settled onto the stone, drawing her knees to her chest and wrapping her arms around them for warmth. The valley below remained shrouded in shadow, the village a collection of dark shapes waiting for light's touch. She poured tea from her thermos, the steam rising in delicate curls that dissipated into the cool air. The warmth of the cup seeped into her palms, a small comfort against the morning chill. Her thoughts drifted to yesterday's letter, the official-looking envelope that had contained news of her grandmother's cottage, now Ana's home being in the path of a planned development. The paper had crinkled in her trembling hands as she read about progress and fair market value and 60 days' notice. The cottage had been in her family for 4 generations, each room layered with memories and meaning beyond any monetary value. The thought of losing it felt like losing her grandmother all over again. Ana's chest tightened with the familiar ache of uncertainty, a physical manifestation of her fears for the future. What would her grandmother advise now, faced with powerful developers and legal documents filled with intimidating language? The cottage was more than a structure of wood and stone. It was the keeper of family history, the place where Ana had learned to bake bread, to garden, to be still, and listen to the world around her. The eastern horizon began to glow more distinctly now, a thin line of pale gold appearing where sky met earth. Ana watched as colors slowly bloomed across the canvas of morning, first the faintest pink, then deeper rose, followed by streaks of amber and gold. Light seemed to gather strength with each passing minute, pushing back the night's shadows with gentle but unwavering determination. The transformation happening before her eyes spoke of ancient rhythms and constant renewal. A red-tailed hawk soared overhead, riding the first thermal currents of morning, its wings outstretched in perfect balance. Ana followed its graceful path across the slowly brightening sky, admiring the freedom and confidence in its flight. Her grandmother had often pointed out hawks to her, explaining how they represented perspective and vision, the ability to see both details and the bigger picture simultaneously. "Be like the hawk," she would say, "rise above to see clearly." Ana reached for her journal, opening to a blank page as the day continued to unfold around her. Her pen hovered above the paper, uncertain where to begin, what thoughts to capture first. The simple act of being present in this moment, breathing the clean morning air, feeling the gentle breeze against her skin helped center her. Words began to flow, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, her thoughts becoming more ordered as they took physical form on the page. She wrote about fear and uncertainty, about cherished memories, and the importance of place. She wrote about her grandmother's wisdom and strength, qualities Ana had always admired but sometimes doubted in herself. The words came faster now, filling page after page, a release of emotions too complex for tears. Her hand moved almost independently of conscious thought, giving voice to feelings that had been tangled within her heart. As the writing slowed, Ana became aware of a warm glow touching her face. She looked up to see the sun's first direct rays cresting the distant hills, golden light spilling across the landscape like honey. The effect was transformative. Trees that had been dark silhouettes moments before now stood detailed and dimensional, their leaves shimmering with light. Dewdrops on nearby grass became tiny prisms, scattering rainbows in all directions. The village below gradually awakened, chimneys beginning to send thin plumes of smoke into the morning air. Lights appeared in windows as people started their day, unaware of the quiet witness on the hill above. Aina felt a strange sense of connection to each of those homes, each life unfolding in its own unique pattern. Her grandmother had known most of the villagers, their stories intertwined through decades of shared experiences, celebrations, and hardships. An idea began to take shape in Aina's mind, tentative at first, but growing stronger with each heartbeat. The development threatening her home would affect not just her, but the character of the entire village. Perhaps others felt as she did that some things held value beyond price tags and profit margins. Her grandmother had often spoken about the power of community, how people standing together could weather storms that would topple individuals. The answer wasn't to face this alone. The warmth of the rising sun seemed to seep into Aina's very bones, bringing with it a clarity that had eluded her during the long night. Her grandmother had never been one to surrender without exploring every possibility, without standing firm for what she believed was right. Aina took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the morning air that now carried the scent of possibility. She felt something shift within her, fear giving way to determination, helplessness to purpose. Birds sang with increasing enthusiasm as the day brightened, their chorus a celebration of new beginnings. Aina closed her journal, tucking it carefully back into her backpack, along with the now empty thermos. Her body felt lighter somehow, the weight of worry partially lifted by the combination of physical exertion, natural beauty, and newfound resolve. She stretched her arms overhead, fingers reaching toward the vast blue sky, as though gathering strength from its limitless expanse. The village was fully awake now, and Aina could make out familiar landmarks with perfect clarity in the morning light. The church steeple with its weather vane that always pointed true north. The community garden where neighbors gathered to share both labor and harvest. The small library where Aina volunteered on weekends. Each site reinforced her connection to this place and its people. Her grandmother had invested decades in strengthening those community bonds, knowing their true value. Aina stood, brushing dust from her jeans and taking one last look at the panorama spread before her. The beauty of the scene filled her with gratitude so intense it brought tears to her eyes. Gratitude for this moment of peace, for the generations who had preserved this viewpoint, for her grandmother's guiding presence that seemed to linger in the gentle breeze. Each breath felt like a gift, each heartbeat a reminder of the precious opportunity to be alive in this place at this time. The path downhill seemed to welcome Aina's footsteps, as though approving her return to the world with new purpose. Sunlight filtered through tree branches, creating patterns of light and shadow that danced across the ground with each breath of wind. Birds flitted between trees, busy with their morning routines, their movements quick and purposeful. A sense of rightness settled over Aina, a feeling that she was exactly where she needed to be. Ideas continued to blossom in Ana's mind as she descended, speaking with neighbors, researching precedents where communities had successfully protected historical properties, organizing a town meeting to discuss alternatives to the proposed development. Her grandmother had taught her that problems often appeared insurmountable only until broken down into manageable steps. "Start where you are," she would say, "and take the next right action." The path forward was becoming clearer with each step. Ana's phone, silent in her pocket throughout her morning journey, would soon connect her to resources and allies. Mrs. Patterson, who taught local history at the high school. Mr. Chung, whose legal background might help navigate complicated documents. Elena from the Historical Society, who had successfully campaigned to preserve the old mill. Individual threads that, woven together, could create a safety net strong enough to catch Ana's falling world. The cottage came into view as Ana rounded the final bend in the path, its blue walls glowing in the morning light, window glass reflecting the sun like welcome beacons. For the first time since opening yesterday's letter, Ana looked at her home without the shadow of fear darkening her vision. Instead, she saw a place worth fighting for, a legacy deserving protection, not just for her sake, but for future generations who might find healing within its walls. As Ana approached her garden gate, she noticed something she had missed in the pre-dawn darkness. Her grandmother's roses, inherited from her own mother, had produced their first buds of the season. Tiny green promises of beauty to come. They had pushed through despite late frosts and hungry deer, their resilience a quiet miracle. Ana bent to touch one gently, marveling at the life force contained within something so seemingly fragile, yet incredibly determined. The front door of the cottage opened to welcome Ana back, the familiar sense of home embracing her lavender sachets and drawers, beeswax polish on wooden surfaces, herbs hanging to dry in the kitchen. She moved through rooms bathed in morning light, seeing them now with renewed appreciation. Each corner held stories, the windowsill where she had placed rocks collected on childhood adventures, the hearth where her grandmother had taught her to bake bread, the bookshelf filled with volumes read and reread through winters long past. Ana made her way to the kitchen, filling the kettle for a fresh cup of tea, the simple routine grounding her in the present moment. Sunlight streamed through the eastern window, catching dust motes that danced in golden beams. She would begin today calling neighbors, gathering information, taking those first steps toward protecting what mattered. The task ahead was substantial but no longer seemed impossible. A gentle knock at the door interrupted Ana's thoughts. Opening it revealed Mrs. Rivera from next door, her kind face creased with concern, a basket of freshly baked muffins in her hands. "I saw you hiking up early this morning," she said, "and thought you might need these when you returned." "I received the same letter yesterday." The simple act of kindness, of shared understanding, brought unexpected tears to Ana's eyes. She was not alone after all. Ana invited her neighbor in, putting on water for more tea as Mrs. Rivera placed the basket on the kitchen table. "I've been thinking," the older woman said, settling into a chair with familiar ease. "My nephew works with the Historical Preservation Commission in the city. Perhaps he could help us understand our options." Aina felt a wave of gratitude wash over her, warm and comforting as sunshine. This was how challenges had always been met in Meadowbrook, not with individual struggle, but with hands joined in common purpose. As they talked, sharing ideas and possibilities over steaming mugs of tea and warm muffins, Aina felt her grandmother's presence so strongly she almost expected to see her in her usual chair by the window. The morning light caught the edges of her framed photograph on the wall, illuminating her smile in a way that seemed to hold approval. Some battles were worth fighting, some places worth preserving, some traditions meant to continue. Aina understood now what her grandmother had always known, that in sharing our burdens, we find not only strength but unexpected joy.